My goal system is just tracking my entire life, but it's only because I'll never remember my goals otherwise. Surprisingly, this weird tracking helped me reach all my goals this year. I track every minute, day, week, month, quarter, and year, just so I can vibe check myself. Like last year, I wanted to poop 666 times and I ended up surpassing that goal. I also noticed the weirdest reason I cried this year was because of Duolingo. Anyway, in this video, I'm exposing all my tracking details, including how I'm setting up my goals for next year. So I made this handy goal tracking routines guide for you. Let me just say that I almost didn't film this today because the lighting wasn't good, but we are leaving perfectionism behind this year. Next year, we are entering with an action-oriented mindset. It can be very simple to take action, and that's what I'm going to teach you today. So this goal tracking routines guide I made for you, we're going to go through it together. Feel free to pause this at any time and go through that while I'm showing you how to do this. So step 1 here is time travel. The first thing we're going to do is make a vision board. I have a Figma template here for you, but feel free to use Canva or whatever you're comfortable with. I like to make a desktop background because I'm usually on my laptop, but you can also make a phone background if you want. So this vision board, I make it on Figma, but because it's just easier for me. But if you prefer Canva, feel free to use that. Very easy to edit. You just double click and select the text and edit it to whatever you want, whether it's your routines or just reminders and your main goal for the year. Now, to edit the images, it's easy. You just click and drag the image there or double click and you can replace it with an image if you want. So actually, the first thing here is I put a little filter over it so it looks a bit faded, but feel free to erase that filter and just replace this image behind the filter and you can upload it from the computer. But again, if you're using Canva, you don't have to worry about other stuff. So I just like to put a quote reminder to motivate me and my focus goal for the year. You can put in whatever you want. After the vision board, which will hopefully get you very excited, you want to write a letter to your future self. Now, I love reading letters from my past self, even if it's just memes and random stuff, because I just notice how I've changed. So for example, in the past, I wrote something like, oh, I almost don't want to write this in case it doesn't happen in the future, like I'm scared. But I was like, I should have given myself permission to be happy and know that I will be okay and I can accept whatever changes happen in the future. So now I'm like, who cares if this doesn't happen in the future? I'm gonna be happy right now and plan for it anyway in the hopes that it does happen. Because when you have that mindset, like things can go wrong, I don't want to do this, I'm scared, that kind of comes through in your actions, and then you might accidentally self-sabotage something when you are just worried about it. So I try to come from a place of acceptance, love, and excitement instead of a place of fear. Now, the next step here is to keep a wins document because that is how you build that confidence and kind of get rid of that fear. So for example, I almost didn't post a lot of my videos on YouTube. Like I didn't build my business. And that is because I was scared. I had imposter syndrome. I was not confident in myself. And ever since I kept a wins document, which can just be a very simple document where you screenshot and write down the compliments other people give you or just things that you're proud of. One of the students in my course, she was proud of not blowing up at this really rude guy at the supermarket, and even something super mundane like that, you can put that in your wins document because as you read through it on your bad days or if you just need that burst of motivation, it'll help you so much in making you feel like you can really do this. And once that mindset comes through in your actions, then the progress happens from there. This is just setting yourself up for success. If this wins document is too difficult, what I like to do is screenshot some social media comments I get and put it in a wins folder on my phone. And sometimes I just scroll through it and I just feel so grateful. We are done traveling, so all of this is setting stuff up for your future self so that you can be grateful that you did all of this at the end of this year so that next year, your future self can have life so much easier. Now, once you're done with step 1, step 2 is to get vibe checked. So hopefully you built up some confidence with these other step 1 activities. Now it's kind of more difficult, but worth it. So this time and energy audit is what I get a lot of my students to do. This is going to vibe check how you're spending your time so much. Because a lot of people are like, where is my time going? I should be having more time. So I just get you to estimate your weekly time spent on different areas of your life. So sleeping, if you get 8 hours a night, do 8 times 7. Hobbies, your side hustle, your work, things like that. And then just add them up and rank if they give you energy or if they take away energy. Now, at the end, the formulas will show you whether you have more energy-giving hours or energy-draining hours. So if you have more energy-giving ones, that's great. You're probably doing more things you like. But if you have a lot of energy-draining hours, then you might feel burnt out. So you always want to make sure you're doing enough things that give you energy. Or if you have too many energy draining hours that you can't really get rid of, like work or like something you have to do like chores, make sure you pair them with something more positive, like, do chores while listening to a podcast or doing something else you enjoy. So it kind of cancels out and it makes it more neutral. So after you do that time and energy audit, I usually teach my students how to track their time 24/7 just so they can get a more accurate benchmark. But that might be too much. A lot of people do find it helpful though, but that's in my course. I won't go through it now. So the next category is life categories ranking. So these are the categories I've separated my life into in my Notion and also in all of my goals. And this is what I teach in my course. So growth is just personal development, therapy, anything that contributes to your personal growth as a person. Ugh, don't know what I'm saying. But the next category is career and finance. This is anything to do with side hustles, personal finance, and your work. Next is creativity. So this is hobbies, just like things that give you joy. Next up is health, although I will say this is more physical health and growth is more the mental health. So this can be anything from your diet, your gym routine, your sleep. And lastly, we have social, which is just your relationships with others, whether it's friends or family or a partner. So now you want to take these categories and rank them out of 10. How do you feel about these areas of your life? So if you feel like you really did well in personal growth this year, you can put 10 out of 10. But this will help benchmark you for when you're setting goals for the next year. So I'm going to show you the reflections that I did. You want to look at your previous goals or theme of the year. So if you didn't set goals last year, that's fine. You just want to think back and be like, what was the theme of this year? What was the life category throughout the months this year? So in my reflection, I did this reflection last year, and I noticed that when I set intentions for that year, I wanted to focus on financial health. But actually, I noticed in the beginning of the year, I was training for a marathon, so I actually focused on physical health. And in the middle of the year, it was summer, so I had a lot of friends who had parties and birthdays, so that was more focused on my social. Last was travel and relationships, because you tend to travel during the fall, which is when the flights are the cheapest, but also when the weather is the worst. And this made me realize that, my social life was 10 out of 10, my physical health, marathon training, 10 out of 10, but I didn't really focus on my financial health, and I didn't really focus on my hobbies, which I wanted to focus on. So I divided it into categories, the good and the bad. So the good, I wrote, I learned a lot from other people and spent more time with friends, and I had so many fun memories from traveling. But the bad is I didn't put as much energy into learning things because it felt like I wasted my spare time, and I felt like I slacked off at work or didn't work on things that were as impactful. So that's when I discovered that it's very important to me to do work that I think is impactful and makes a difference in the lives of other people. And in my course, I talk about this thing called the Life North Star metric, which is basically this measure of how you want to live your life. Like, you've lived a successful life if you measure this and you succeed in this. For me, it was number of people positively impacted, which is why I'm into content and have my own business now. But for you, it could be something like number of days you're excited to wake up in the morning, or like the number of people you made laugh. It all depends on your values. And in my course, I work through this with people. They love taking a cute little values quiz and figuring out their North Star metric, and it gives so much clarity. Now, the next thing is you need to write down your intentional learnings for next year. So I actually forgot I wrote all of this until I was preparing for this video, and I looked through my previous year's reflections. So I wrote, my learning for next year, I just need to pick one thing and try it out for a few months instead of being so scattered and trying so many things at once. Then I started thinking, like, how can I do that? I can do that by setting clear goals with success metrics. And, I know SMART goals work, but they were so complicated for me, I just couldn't. So now I reverse engineer my goals, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. I reverse engineer my goals into habits, like super easy habits. So I don't even have to think about it because I'm a lazy girl, lazy but ambitious. Then I need to set a clear timeline. This is also in my goals section because I have a whole system for this now because I've seen that it worked for me the past year when I've accomplished all my goals. You want to set a timeline and a deadline because I feel like otherwise I would never get anything done. A student from my course made a very good realization that when there's a timeline, instead of counting down to it when you reach your goal, that's day 0, you want to count up to it because that just means you're building upon the progress. When you're counting down, it kind of feels like you're coming from a place of fear. You know, the deadline's coming, I end up with 0, day 0. But when you count up, like day 1 out of 30, it feels like you're building things up one by one and you feel more complete and accomplished by the end of it instead of just feeling like 0 deadline, I'm scared. You want to come from a place of pride and accomplishment and love instead of that place of fear. So I'll show you how to do all of that because I think my systems make it so fun. Like after my course, all my students are like, I'm doing the same things, but it's so much more fun now. It feels like a game or experiment or challenge. So that's exactly what I teach people to do, but I'm just gonna show you the whole systems today in this video. By the way, if you want more of this, please like, comment, subscribe. It would mean so much to me because, you know, my life North Star metric is to positively impact more people. So if you're telling the algorithm that you found my content useful, I'll just be able to be shown to more people, which means I'll positively impact them too. I appreciate it. Now, I actually made a plan after doing these reflections because like if you're sitting down there anyway and just planning things out, doing reflecting, you might as well make an action plan for things you can do right away. So my plan was to freelance a bit and get experience and really understand what I like to do. And if you look at some of my previous videos, I dabbled in the whole business side, agency work, and that's when I realized I don't actually like doing agency work. I like doing my own products, working on my own stuff more. So that only happened because I tried things out and got experience. Now, I also wrote down that I wanted to share my learnings with other people because that is what's going to help me positively impact people. I ended up writing everything I'm learning in a second newsletter, and that really helped me understand and reflect on everything I was learning, but I could also look back and just see how far I've come. Not only that, I also got to help people because I get email replies and people are like, this is so useful, this helps so much, and that leads to me accomplishing my life North Star metric even more, which is to positively impact more people. So you can see how like everything I do kind of leads back to that life North Star metric because that gives me so much clarity in my actions and so much more intentionality when it comes to spending my time on things that matter. I also said that I wanted to build a following and build my own business and my personal brand. And that's what I did this past year. Like I grew to even more than I realized. That whole process actually started in December last year, like near the end of the year. So before the new year even started, I was already working on my goals. I also wrote I wanted to sell my own products and have my own business. Definitely check. I felt so proud of myself because I made in one day, I made my entire month's salary from my previous job. And I was like, I don't even understand how this is possible, but I did it. And hopefully that is an inspiration for you as well, because I feel like a lot of the times you set your own limits. I hear a lot of people say, I can't do that, that's impossible. But you need to learn to creatively problem solve. You need to ask yourself why a bunch of times. It's called the 5 whys analysis, which is in my course. But ask yourself why and critically think, what are these self-limiting beliefs that are stopping me from living the life that I want? We can break it down and systematize everything. That's another thing I wrote here in my plan, to systematize things. And this is a system that I have created that has helped me reach my goals and that has helped a lot of my students reach their goals too and can help you as well. So step 3 is to set up systems. So this is my goal guide. This is very straightforward. I have a whole video and template that goes with this. You just want to pick one goal based on those 5 categories I mentioned earlier: growth, career and finance, creativity, health, and social, and make it very specific and reverse engineer it. So you first brain dump, because I get overwhelmed if I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do. I just know I want to focus on this category. Write down everything you're thinking of. You get so much clarity from it. It also gets rid of your perfectionism of having to write the perfect goal, because this is just a brain dump. It's just a draft. It's fine if it's messy. Then you want to list out the goal state, which is the transformation you want. Like, who will you be at the end of this if you succeed? So if you're focusing on fitness, it could be like someone who can squat really low. That was one of my visualizations because I dislocated my kneecap earlier and I couldn't do that anymore. So I'm like, I'm going to do my physio every day for at least 5 minutes so I can accomplish this. So once you have that visual, it'll help motivate you a lot more. The next thing is to write down your habits. Usually I focus on one super easy habit. Like I wanted to practice piano. So instead of being like, I need to practice 2 hours every day, I wrote, just practice at least 5 minutes per day. And yesterday my sister was making food. We were supposed to watch a movie together, but I was just waiting around for her. Usually I would have gone on my phone and just scrolled the time away. But I was like, oh, I still have to do my at least 5 minutes of piano practice. Let me go and practice real quick. I practiced for like 15 minutes and like I just got so much closer to my goals. A lot of the time I practice for like 2 hours instead of 5 minutes, but starting with that 5 minutes really helps. So if you're focusing on physical health and exercise, then maybe it could be something like take a walk for at least 5 minutes every weekend, or laying out your gym clothes on your chair the morning before you have to go to the gym. Very easy to do, takes less than 5 minutes, and you're more likely to succeed if you do that. Now, the most important part is you need to add to-dos, or things that you can do right now to set up your habits. And these are things that you can do to like harness that energy you have from planning all these goals right now and setting up these systems, because chances are if you write this down, sometimes you forget about them and never do anything. So I make you do these to-dos so you can start setting up the systems, like send yourself a calendar invite, start asking friends if they want to go to a Pilates class with you or something. You need to take action right now so that your future self is kind of forced to follow through. I usually try to ask people to hold me accountable, and just having these to-dos and checking them off one by one, you get that dopamine hit, that reward, and it just feels so good to have more momentum, because like with more actions that you're taking right now, the more momentum you have, and your brain is just like, oh, I'm taking these actions, which must mean I have these beliefs, which must mean I will succeed. And it just kind of snowballs from there. The next thing is you want to reflect on your goals. You can't forget about this because otherwise you might not learn from the mistakes that you're making. So I have a whole template for this. You can check it out later. If you don't like this template, you can also use this choose your own habit adventure. So usually I click on a button, which is the category that I'm focused on. And it's basically the same system. It's just presented in a more fun way, like choose your own adventure game. Again, this is like setting a very simple habit. And the next step, you want to make it into like a consistency calendar or table where every single day, all you have to do is open up this table, like make sure it's pinned on your Notion. Make sure you have a sticky note on your computer or something that says, go to this page. Like you want to see it every single day, just like you're seeing your desktop background with your vision board every single day. And when you check those things off every day and you always think about it, it takes 2 minutes to check it off. You kind of build this streak and it's just so satisfying to see all the check marks. It kind of rewards your brain, which makes you want to do it more. So you're kind of like manipulating yourself into being consistent with these habits. The other thing that really helps is visualizing, again, what clear result you'll have after 1 week. So if you do this thing every single day, like let's say you want to start a business and you write down one business idea every single day for 7 days, at the end of the week, you will have a big document with at least 7 ideas, because most likely you'll write down more than one business idea if you're already doing it and you're getting inspired. That end goal is what you want, and that's what will keep you consistent. And starting with a week is very manageable. Usually my seasons of these goals go for months, but for you, if you're not used to the system, I try starting with a week. Then you'll be like, oh, I want these 7 days of business ideas. I'm excited to do this every single day because it's very easy to do. It's way better to do something like this. Even though 7 business ideas might not seem like a lot to you right now, it's way better to do this than to procrastinate and not come up with any ideas and then always feel guilty about yourself for not doing that. Again, that's coming from a place of fear and guilt and negative emotion. You're like, I should be doing this, but it's too much. I'm overwhelmed. I don't want to do it. But when you break it down into these easy habits, and you have a clear transformation of where you want to be just for the 7 days. Very easy to do. You can fit it into your schedule even if you're super busy. Then you'll just feel more accomplished. You'll feel motivated. It's these positive emotions that carry you forward towards more of your goals. Now, after that, you just redeem, that's like the reward for yourself. When you visualize the transformation, your reward is that tangible thing, that list of 7 business ideas that you have. So that's another template that you could use if you're more into the gamification part. So the next thing I do is my reflections, because, okay, I'm lazy, right? Sometimes I set up these goals and then I never go back to these documents again. So what you want to do is future-proof it. You need to set up more systems to make yourself check these regularly and not forget about them, because I'm very forgetful. So what I do is these reflections. This is a template in my course. I have my weekly reflections, monthly reflections, quarterly, and yearly. And I also time track every second of my life and journal every single day. So that all helps because I have such a terrible memory. And if I'm time tracking every second, I know exactly what I'm doing. I can look at my time tracking calendar. And when I journal every single night, I'm also very lazy with my journaling. Sometimes you can literally just write 1 sentence for your journal for that day, or just point form notes. But what I like to do is I like to yap to a voice recorder thing and then just copy paste that transcription. And sometimes I get ChatGPT to clean it up. But if you're a good speaker, like this helps me practice my speaking skills and communication. If you're a good speaker, you just copy paste the transcript into your journal. It's so easy. I used to spend like 30 minutes typing up a long journal entry, and my typing speed is pretty fast. But after I started yapping to my phone, it takes like 5 to 10 minutes. It saves me so much time. Anyway, I do that, and for my weekly reflection, you see how these all like build up on each other? So my tracking of every single second of my day helps me with synthesizing what I do that day for my daily journal entries. Then my journal entries, in the title, like the date, I write down like a brief summary of what happened. So I'm like, today I went to Olive Garden or whatever. Then, or like if multiple things happen that day, I'll write like Olive Garden, errands, like returning my running shoes, which is what I'm gonna do after this video. Then you just look through the daily journal entries, and from there you can do this weekly reflection. So I have some questions here. Feel free to add whatever questions you find useful. But what I like to do is I write down what my wins were that week. What gave me energy? You know, I'm so big about like working with your energy. I've mentioned, you know, you want to come from a place of positive energy, not negative, because that's what's going to carry you forward. That's what's going to keep you consistent with your goals. So every week I vibe check. What are my energy levels like, and how can it help me with my goals? So I write down my wins, what gave me energy, my losses, what drained energy. You know, if I continue today's habits, would I be proud of who I am 1 year from now? What should I say no to? What would that allow me to say yes to? And my gratitude. And also goals for the week ahead. So that helps me set intentions. So I always keep it in mind for the next week. And that just kind of carries me forward with that positive energy. On weeks where I notice that I have more losses than wins, I know by doing this reflection, which takes like 5 minutes, I know that I need to make some changes, especially if I'm doing my monthly reflections. So again, when I do my monthly reflections, I look through all my weeklies and try to spot common trends. And the monthly reflection questions are like, what did I love? What did I learn? What do I want to focus on? 3 easy questions. And by looking through the weekly energy questions, like what gave me energy, what drained energy, I'm like, oh, I should really start eliminating all these things that drain energy that I don't need to do. And if I see something that gives me a lot of energy, I'm like, maybe I should do more of that. So it's just being aware here. And if you do time tracking, every month you can look through your time tracking reports and see if you hit your goals. So like, I believe 1 month I was like, I want to decrease my phone time. I'm spending 11% of my time on my phone. Let me decrease that to like 5%. So then the next month I would check, oh, did the time spent on this thing I want to decrease, did it actually reduce? And then every quarter I look at my monthly reflection stuff, which is just like, again, what created energy, what drained energy, what's my most important thing right now? Are my current habits aligned with my most important thing? And next steps. The next steps is always what's most important. Hopefully you can see a trend in all these reflections now. It's always like, what do I want to focus in the next week, the next month? What do I want to do for the next steps? So after you do all your reflections and all your goal setting stuff, since you're already there sitting down, working on this stuff, might as well put next steps and take actions for your future self so you can set up these systems and change things to improve your life and work towards your goals. So this yearly reflection is when I look through all my quarterly reflections. So like, it's too much at the end of the year to look through all your single day journal entries. And it's too much to look at all the weeks. So what I like to do is look at the monthly ones, which are only 12, and the quarterly ones. Oh, and every month there's so much. Okay, let me tell you later. For the yearly reflections, I wrote, what did I change my mind on this year? And then year by year, you can just kind of see that growth and how you expanded your learning, what created energy this year, what drained energy this year, and hopefully the created energy is a lot bigger than drained energy. And who were the boat anchors in my life. So this is just like stuff that I should be changing, because I used to have really bad boundaries. I'd be such a people pleaser. So I'm like, who are the people that are taking advantage of this? And what can I do about that? So it's like, being more clear with my boundaries with them, or just like straight up cutting them off, but like trying my best to communicate with them. And then the other thing is like, what did I not do because of fear? Because a lot of people on their deathbeds, they say what they regret most is not actually the things that they did, but the things they didn't do. So I just like to identify what I didn't do because of fear, so that next year I can change things. And when you're intentional about that, you can just live a more fulfilling life. So one thing I didn't do because of fear was sharing the stuff that I learned on Twitter, because I didn't want to be judged. I didn't think anything I said would be worth sharing. I also didn't have my travel account. Well, it was supposed to be a travel account, but then it turned into productivity and life tracking account, which I like a lot better anyway. And I just wrote here, like, 1 year changes everything. Like the year after I wrote, I didn't do this because of fear. Through these systems, like it wasn't conscious. I wasn't like, I need to post now. It was just doing this reflection. I think subconsciously, I kind of started realizing I need to take action. Otherwise, I'm not going to be proud of the life that I've led. Now I did all this. I'm sharing what I learned on Twitter. I have my Instagram account that is basically my whole business. And I'm just basically kind of living my dream life right now. So I also asked myself, what are my greatest hits and worst misses this year? And what did I learn this year? And that just kind of helps me be so much more grateful for myself. It really builds up your self-esteem and your confidence, which again is coming from that place of good energy that will carry you forward in the future. So if you're feeling right now like you're overwhelmed, you can't do anything, you're a failure, doing these systems will help you realize that you accomplished way more than you thought you did. Because I think we just tend to forget about our accomplishments, and our brains are wired to remember our losses more. So when you do these reflections, you can just remember these positive things about yourself, and that'll build up your confidence, which will carry you to your goals. Now, every month and year, I also like to make a cute little photo board of all my favorite memories, because every month and every year, I'm like, this just flew by so fast. What did I even do? Nothing happened this year. But then I look through my photos and I'm like, wow, actually a lot happened this year. And what I do is every month, I just pick my favorite photos. You can put them in a photo album on your phone. You don't have to make a whole collage. It can be very easy. You just pick your favorites and drag them into a collage if you want, or the album that you have on your phone. So every single month, you just have these photos. And then by the end of the year, as the photos build up, you'll just have this reflection that you made of all your favorite memories, and it's just such a wholesome thing to do. Now, that is how you can set up your systems. The template is in my course. So now I'm going to show you my example system. I talked about it a little bit before, but let me just go into it in more detail. Like I mentioned, I time track 24/7. I have a whole guide about this in my course, how to make this dashboard, but it's like so much work. I don't recommend making the dashboard. All the FAQs, how to set things up, some tips and things to keep in mind, mistakes to avoid, things like that. And also how to analyze things and make the data dashboard. So this is all these instructions, and this whole guide is available in my course. But basically, when you look through your time tracking, there's this tab called reports. And what I like to do is I look at my top 3 priorities for that time period. So usually I go by month, or week. Like, what did I spend the most time on this week? Usually it's sleep. It's some kind of work, whether it's my own side project or my previous job, and something social like friends or my relationship. If I notice that the top 3 becomes things that I don't really care about, so like sleep and work that I'm not very passionate about, and my phone. That's what it used to be. Like, my phone was in the top 3, like doom scrolling. And I was like, do I really want to be spending like this much time on my phone? Like, it's in the top 3. That means I'm spending hours and hours on it. So now I am more mindful of how I spend my time. And I'm like, this phone time is not related to my goals that much. Let me be more mindful of this. So even the act of tracking your time, and it can be very easy to set up. You just make an account and start tracking. It's okay if you make mistakes. One day of missed time tracking is not going to impact your entire year of analysis. It's even better if you just keep going despite the mistakes and try again the next day or the next hour. Like every single hour, minute, day, week, it's a new one. You can reinvent yourself and try again. So what I did was, when I note the top 3 is things that do align with my goals, I'm like, this is good. I'm proud of myself. Add it in my wins doc, add it in my monthly reflection. But if I'm seeing like I'm spending too much time on chores or transportation, social media, I'm like, okay, what can I do to change this? I look at my weekly reflections. I'm like, is this draining energy? I have all of these systems and documentation to vibe check myself, because otherwise I feel like I'm not very self-aware and I just like forget everything. I also use this for my business to calculate the ROI on my time. So for example, a sponsor would pay me this amount of money. I spend this amount of time on it. What is the ROI? Or I would spend this much time on my posts. I get this much in sales due to the direct result of my posts and my videos. This is the ROI. So then I can see what activities actually matter. Because I feel like a lot of the time you have a huge to-do list of things to do, but half the things on the list don't even matter. So you're like overwhelmed over the small things. I want to focus on only the things that bring me a lot of ROI. And it's things like making videos like these, which align with my life North Star metric of positively impacting other people. So when you just have time tracking like this and you track everything, it really vibe checks you, which is what I need. Because otherwise I'm just drifting through life, like not remembering anything, not really doing anything intentionally. But I had to realize I don't want to live life that way. So this time tracking, all of these systems might seem excessive to some people, but I'm like, I need to be vibe checked. People see me as disciplined. I don't feel disciplined. I just do this because the intrinsic motivation is there. Because I'm like, I know, and I have seen the results of these systems in my life. Like through the last few years, I left behind a lot of things that weren't making me happy. And I just am working now towards my life purpose, that life North Star metric. And I have so much clarity. Like the way to get there, I'm still not sure about, but like the end goal is there. It's very clear to me. So I just feel like I created this dream life through this intentional reflection, these easy systems, which I have all the templates for in my course. It just helped me so much. And it adapts with me as well as my life changes, as I graduated school and got my first job, as I left my job to start my own business. All these systems still work for me. So that was my time tracking thing. The next thing is daily. So every single day, whenever I poop or cry, I always note it down, because sometimes I'm like on the toilet on my phone. I'm like, instead of scrolling, maybe I should start tracking my poo health, because sometimes it smells weird. I'm like, is there something wrong with me? So I'm just like more aware of the things that I eat. And for my cry count, sometimes it kind of cheers me up. I know it's kind of weird, but like if I'm sad and crying, I'm like, let me track my cry count. I kind of laugh and I'm like, well, I'm grateful that I can get through this. Like my cry count throughout the years, I'm like just looking at the trends, and it's not all bad. Sometimes I cry because I'm grateful or happy. So it puts things into perspective for me. I also have this Google form, and every night I fill this out, and it's just reminding me of what's important to me. So I wrote, did I work towards my goals today? This is just me saying, I need to always have this top of mind. Every single day, your habits are who you are. The actions you take, they show the world what kind of person you are. I want to be a person who is disciplined at working towards their goals. A lot of people are like, Jen, you're so disciplined. You have all this consistency system set up. I felt like I was not a disciplined person. I felt lazy and forgetful. But ever since I set up these systems, my actions show me differently. So now I'm like starting to believe, okay, maybe I am disciplined. I'm not lazy. So it's like you have to take these actions and set up these systems to make yourself take action so that you can become the person that you want to be and have your actions reflect that. Because if somebody tells you, like if your friend is telling you, I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow, and then they never go, and they say that every day, you are not going to believe they really value health. But if you see that friend at the gym every single day, then you'll be like, oh wow, this person is so healthy. You start to believe them because their actions actually reflect what they're saying. And if your friend is like, hey, let's meet today at the gym, and it's a rainy day, you don't want to go, but you show up anyway, if you wouldn't ghost that friend, like why wouldn't you show up for yourself? If you tell yourself you're going to go to the gym, why don't you show up for yourself and keep that promise to yourself? Because I noticed that when I broke these promises to myself, I started feeling bad. It's like all these negative emotions. I'm guilty, I'm overwhelmed. So you need to make it as easy for yourself to succeed. You need to set super easy goals. Like, okay, I'm going to lay out my gym clothes. Make yourself excited. Create that happy energy. I'm so much more excited to go to the gym if I have a cute gym outfit that I lay out the night before, or I have a really good playlist of podcasts or music I like queued up so that I'm ready to go. It's just really understanding yourself, which happens through these weekly, monthly reflections, but also creating these systems for yourself to make it as easy and simple as possible for you to take actions that align with your beliefs. Now, back to this Google form. Since my Life North Star metric is to positively impact other people, I put whether I gave somebody a genuine compliment here or not. Because every single night, I send a compliment video or like appreciation video to my partner, who we're long distance right now, but I send that to him and it just makes me feel so good and makes him feel good as well. It is directly tied to my positively impacting other people goal. And I noticed even on days where we're like traveling together, I was in Thailand once and there was this lady, she looked so beautiful. So I straight up went and told her and she was so happy. And it's just memories like that that make me be like, wow, this is life worth living. This is what I'm here for. So that is something I now track just to remind myself of what's really important. The other thing is my productivity rating. And I actually noticed that on days where I'm productive, but it's like the wrong things. So like I'm doing admin work, but it doesn't feel like it's impactful. I'm not connecting it to my goals. I actually have a lower happiness rating. But when I'm productive and it's like things that really align with my goals, I feel like I have purpose. I know this is going to take me forward and also help other people, help me with my Life North Star metric of positively impacting others. Then I'm like, feeling so much happier because I'm living life intentionally. I know I'm working towards my goals. Even if the thing is hard, like filming this video can be hard. I had to set up all the scripts and do the thumbnails and everything, but it's worth it for me because I know it aligns with my purpose. So that's why I track that. My happiness rating is kind of obvious because if some months I'm like, oh, it's lower, I try to identify what happened. That just means that I know myself more, I understand myself, and from there I can create better systems to make myself do the things that I say I want to do. And then I also track my poo in this form. Now, the other thing I want to talk about that I do every day is I journal. So when I journal, as I mentioned before, I have a terrible memory. So every night when I'm journaling, I'm like, what happened today? What did I eat for breakfast? So I look through my time tracking and it says exactly what I did. So I'm like, okay, let me just speak to my phone in these voice notes for the transcript, exactly what I see in my time tracking calendar. So I reference my time tracking for my daily journal and I also reference my TTL list. So this list is something that I made instead of using all these fancy to-do list apps or calendar apps because it's just so simple. And also I can't plan ahead for more than like 2 days. If I have this list where it's just today, tomorrow, and later, I'm like, oh, this is so simple. I can just focus on these things. I think maybe that's an ADHD thing because I'm like, I really cannot plan forward for more than today and tomorrow. So what I do is if I have to get something done today, I put it under today. And under today, I have one big thing. This is like the task that I really need to done today, no matter what. I know if I check it off, then I'm happy. And usually I try to keep the today list short and then put everything under tomorrow or later. And every night I would drag the tasks for tomorrow into the today. And then every morning, all I have to do is check this list and I can start checking things off and take action right away instead of being like, I don't know what I'm going to do today. And even on times where I'm like, oh, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing right now, but I have spare time, I just check this list. It's so easy. And at the end of the day, you just see all these check marks done and you just feel so satisfied. So I just check this list for seeing what I did that day. And sometimes I screenshot it and put it in my journal. Now, weekly. I talked about the reflections already, so I'm going to skip this. But again, you can find a template in my course. Monthly, so I do these photo boards. Every month, I try to pick out a few of my favorite pictures and memories from that month. If you don't take a lot of pictures, you can just write down what memories you remember from, like, I don't know, maybe you journal or you write things down. You have receipts, you have stuff that you got, you have other people that you can ask, like what happened during that hangout or like what happened during this month when we hung out. You know, just make something that you can be proud of for this month because I do this activity in my course. It's called Life in Weeks. When you do that, you realize you shouldn't take any week or month for granted. Like, the reason why I reflect and feel so grateful and like harvest that positive energy to move me towards my goals is because I know that this time is not going to come back. We have a limited amount of time here, and you never get that back. You can get money back, sure, if you work really hard and you can make more money, but you never get your time back. That's why every month I reflect, because I'm like, this month, I'm never going to get that time back. I am never going to be able to go back and live this month again. So let me reflect on what made me grateful this month, what made me happy this month. And throughout the years, I actually put together a list of all my favorite photos every single year. So like for September, you can see the growth. Like in September 2021, this was my recipe and picnics era. I honestly don't even remember what happened in September 2021. But after seeing these pictures and digging them up and creating this photo board, which was so fun, I made it on Canva. There's a Canva template for this in my course somewhere. But I'm like, wow, I actually did have a lot of fun. I experimented with a lot of different recipes. I went on hikes and picnicked outdoors with my friends. And then a year later, 2022, I also went outdoors and spent time with my friends. 2023, spent a lot more time with my friends, ran my first marathon. I traveled a lot to see other friends. And then 2024, I explored nature in Asia. Again, I was traveling here. And just seeing this board, I'm like, wow, you really see the growth. I'm just like so grateful for all these previous years that I didn't take them for granted, even though I didn't remember them and thought I took them for granted. But just looking at these pictures, I'm like, wow, I really lived life, and it made me feel so grateful. And again, it puts me into that headspace where I'm like, I am excited to see what future years have, instead of being like, oh, I wasted my time, like I'm worthless, I didn't do anything. You want to create this positive energy so that you can turn your life around for the better. Now, again, I also have milestones. So like I copy paste all my best wins from my weekly reflections and put them into my monthly milestones. So at the end of every year, I look at every month and all my accomplishments for that month. And I'm like, wow, this is a year well spent. And before I did this, I was like, what even happened this year? Like, this is such a waste. I didn't do anything. But after I started reflecting like this and I start, it's not that much time to reflect daily or weekly. It's like 15 to 30 minutes at most. But those little actions build up. And then it's so much easier to look back at your daily, weekly, and quarterly entries for your reflections when you reflect on the whole year. Because let's say you're sitting there right now and you didn't do any of these reflections. You're like, what did I even do this year? You scroll through your photos. You're like, okay, I guess I did these. But it's not going to be in as much detail and reflection as if you wrote them down during the week it was happening. So that's why I do everything like every week, month, year, I'm doing this, because it just gives me so much more insight. And once I have that visual or end goal in mind, I'm like, I'm gonna get so much fun insights, I'm gonna feel so good at everything I accomplish. That's what keeps me consistent. Some weeks, I forget to do my weekly reflection. So what I do is I look through my previous journal entries, or I skip it. It's fine if you skip it. One small week is not gonna matter in the whole year when you're doing this analysis. It's also okay if I'm late as well. Like, you need to put behind that perfectionism. It's fine if you're late. It's fine if it's not done. It's fine if it's not perfect. Because what matters, if you look at the long term, is that you keep going. You can miss an entire week. That's fine. Just keep going and get back to it, because if you want to analyze everything for the whole year, you need to get back to it. If you let that 1 week stop you from making any progress, and then you stop doing the reflections for the rest of the year, at the end of the year, you're going to be like, oh, I did this, and I stopped for some reason, and now I feel bad because I wanted to do this. So you need to let go of that perfectionism and get back into that consistency and the consistent reflections. I also reflect on my finances every month for my business. You can do this for your personal finances if you want. It's just I have to track my business finances. So I look at my income streams, I look at my ROI, I look at how much sponsorship revenue I got versus my own products, which kind of helps me focus my energy. And I also, like, at the end of every month, since I do this, at the end of every year, I have all the numbers from every single month. And it's so satisfying to just see, like, wow, this month I accomplished this. This month I didn't do as much. What happened? What can I change? What can I improve on? And I noticed when I reflected on those months, like those downturns where I didn't meet my goals, I'm like, okay, let me make this change. And just even the act of reflecting made it more salient in my mind. I'm like, okay, this happened. I'm gonna remember this subconsciously, and then somehow my actions just have that in mind now that I know that I did these reflections. And the next few months after that, I was like, wow, I ended up surpassing some of my goals. And it's also very satisfying to just see all the graphs and like the numbers at the end of the year. Quarterly, I talked a bit about with the reflections, and yearly, same thing. The reflection questions I shared earlier and the photo boards. But I also want to remind you that you need to have immediate to-dos after you do this reflection. Again, if you did all the previous reflections, like, you know, for the yearly reflection, all you have to do is look at your previous monthly and quarterly reflections. It shouldn't take that much time because you put in the consistent action throughout the year so that you can make life easier for your future self. You set up these systems for your future self, and you can just reflect so much easier. Because if I didn't have all these daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly reflections, I'd be like, what even happened this year? It's too much work. Then I don't reflect. Then I'm not living intentionally. Then I'm like not even knowing what to do with my life. So you really need to use that and keep in mind as motivation to stay consistent. And if you're not consistent, it's fine. You just have to get back to it. You always remember you need to get back to it because that's what's going to matter in the long run. Okay. Now, the things that I do whenever I want is swipe files. So sometimes I notice myself scrolling my phone too much, but I try to be intentional about it. I consume content intentionally. If I see an interesting ad or an interesting email, I'm like, why was this interesting to me? So I create this swipe files database where I just save screenshots of stuff that I like. And I'm like, whether it's a website, a social media post, an ad that I saw, and then I reflect more clearly about why I liked it, what I admired from it, what I can learn from it, and apply to my own business or life. And I actually ended up turning that into a website where other people can check out. I did my swipe files in Airtable, but you can do the same thing with Notion. And it's just so easy to set up. Usually I just send it as a message to myself because that makes it a lot easier than like, oh, I'm just scrolling social media and then suddenly I have to do work by pulling out my laptop and screenshotting everything. No, what I do is screenshot it, put it in a swipe files folder on my phone, which takes 2 seconds to set up. Then I message it to myself. So later when I'm on my laptop, then I can look through my messages to myself and reflect more deeply about what I learned. I also update my creator business documentation whenever I want. When I had a job, I would have this extensive work documentation set up, and that was one of my most popular viral videos. But when you just are more mindful of documenting things, it just saves you so much time in the long run. Because sometimes I'm like, what did I do here? I don't even remember. And I just look at my documentation. I'm like, oh. And then I sometimes turn that documentation into something I can sell and make money from stuff that I was going to do anyway. Now, the next steps is I have a ton of other videos. Like if you like this video and you're curious about more details on how to set up your goals or how to organize your life using Notion or Excel spreadsheets with your finances, and building this productivity system that would work for you, I would highly recommend checking out my other videos. But in the meantime, let me know what resonated with you the most in the comments. I would love to see it because it just means so much to me and gives me motivation to continue making these videos. I will also add your nice comments to my wins document to, again, give me that motivation to keep going. Hopefully this helps and you feel very prepared for the next year. I will see you in the next video.